As a longtime fan of the X series, I was fairly disappointed with X Rebirth like many others. Having played X2 The Threat and X3 Terran Conflict and loved those games, I was disappointed that X Rebirth took the series in such a different direction. So when I heard that Egosoft was making another X game called X4 Foundations that would be more true to those previous games, I was thrilled. And while X4 Foundations does meet that goal, it does feel in many ways like it's little more than its name, a foundation. It just isn't fully there yet. If you've never played an X game before, X is basically an open world sandbox. You can be a pirate and steal ships and goods, you can mine or run missions for people, you could trade goods buying low and selling high, you can explore star systems looking for distant shipwrecks to salvage. X is really a game about doing what you want in a space sandbox and making a living on it. Some of my favorite moments in this game had just been exploring the galaxy and finding distant shipwrecks in asteroid belts and then wandering around in my spacesuit and collecting goods on it, salvaging things, and then selling it for a lot of money. Towards the later stages of X games, they shift into more of a strategy game like a 4X. You can purchase mining ships and set them to automatically mine for you, or trading ships to automatically trade for you. You can even build fleets of ships and go fighting people or conquering star systems for yourself by blowing up enemy space stations. If you're more into the economic side of things, you can also build space stations to produce and trade goods like parts for construction or energy to power stations or weapons or other goods. There's a complex underlying simulation going on here that really feels like a full-blown economy. And you're really empowered as the player to do what you want in this world, whether you want to be an economist or go around conquering things or blowing stuff up. There is somewhat of a story here, but it's only about 4 missions long or so, and so you'll basically run through it in about 2 hours. And it ends pretty abruptly without any explanation or any hooks or anything, and as a result, it just kind of adds to the feeling that the game was really rushed out the door when it was not ready. Walking in stations makes its return, and Egosoft has made a number of additions to this. It's really neat being able to dock a fleet and get out watching your ships dock or switch ships, just walking up to them. There's something really cool about that. There's missions and ships you can undertake in here, or talk to faction representatives to work for them. Unfortunately, just like X Rebirth though, the entire thing just feels a bit tacked on and not really worthy of the development time that was put into it. The animations and models of the station inhabitants are crude and lacking, and they've also added a crafting system that's just kind of a joke. You can build things like SATA drives, goods to sell to merchants, or crafting materials. The whole system just feels tacked on, which is a large problem with the game as a whole. A lot of things just feel half-baked. SATA drive makes its return, but unfortunately it can't be used for travel at this time. It disables itself automatically on travel mode and only works as a method to enhance or speed up building or waiting for different things to occur, which is kind of a disappointment. As I mentioned before, the game just has too many half-baked mechanics, a lot of questionable design decisions as well. For example, each ship has 3 different modes. Travel mode activated by Shift 1, which allows you to go faster, short range scanner, which is Shift plus 2, and then there's long range scanner, Shift plus 3. I don't know why they bothered adding all these different modes when they could have just rolled all this into the base one. Why not just combine short and long range scanning and then also just kind of combine the travel modes? All you do is maybe press a button or something to activate it. The long range scanner, for example, is just so unnecessarily complex for no real reason. You have to press the R button for exactly 2 seconds and then let go, and it'll fire the long range scanner out to go scan things. If you do it too short or too long, it fails to work. Why is this mechanic even in the game? What does it add to exactly press it for 2 seconds and then let it go and then it scans things? It doesn't do anything. It's just pointless and clunky. Combat is also another area where X4 just drops the ball a little bit. It's just not that exciting. Visuals are just really boring. The guns sound pathetic and unexciting, and you don't really have to aim or anything. You just kind of point at the ship and then hold spacebar and it just automatically fires. And that'd be fine if there was more feedback to the combat, but the missiles, the guns, the lasers, they just sound and don't look very exciting at all. It's just boring. Worst of all, turrets are completely broken. They can't aim at moving targets. Like, for example, in this footage you're seeing right now, I attack a freighter ship and he literally can't even hit me because the guns just shoot behind me because the tracking is so bad. And this makes capital ships and large ships that you'll buy completely useless, because why not just buy like 100 fighters and swarm somebody to death, because your capital guns are never going to hit anything. It's ridiculous. It's also pretty laughable because attacking things like freighters are just completely easy because they can't ever hit you back. Now, the UI is definitely a step up from X3. It still is overly complex though, and it's lacking tooltips specifically to point out what exactly some of these mechanics do, and it uses some convoluted wording, which has been a recurring problem with X games. I hope over time they can touch this up. They've added a new research system that unlocks by doing story missions. You can unlock the ability to steal different modules through the the scanning system from different stations for station building, and teleporters to move across the galaxy. The teleporters do kind of break the game though, as you can just literally go anywhere in the galaxy instantly. And on top of that, all the researches take exactly 10 minutes, so you'll be done with it in about 2 hours with all the research, which leaves the impression that the research system, like many other mechanics in the game, is half-baked. Unfortunately, the autopilot is a joke, and you basically have to babysit it, as it will literally slam you into objects. There's bugs everywhere, like the black market missions that don't even work as NPCs disappear, that you need to talk to finish the mission. Sometimes auto traders and auto miners bug out and don't do things, or they'll go ridiculous distances or buy stupid goods that have little profit. And when you're commanding ships, they don't seem to use travel mode either, which is really irritating since it takes them forever to get anywhere compared to you when you just jump into their ship with a teleporter and just cruise over there with travel mode. The ships are very disappointing as well. I don't know if it's because they decided to add hard points that weapons, engines, etc. are physically mounted onto, which required that all ships needed to be designed in a certain modular way, but they don't have the same flash as X3 or even X Rebirth ships, which is a huge disappointment. The capital ships in particular just look like garbage compared to some that were found in X3 and X Rebirth. They just are way too blocky, and factional conflicts are almost non-existent in this game compared to previous games. I've rarely seen factions actually fight or do anything. They kind of just sit there and camp gate. Overall, X4 Foundation feels much more like a foundation than a completed game. I still do really enjoy the game despite its problems, and I love the X premise. It's a unique experience that you really can't get anywhere else, and I've played well over 30 hours in this game, and I do love it. And I hope that it gets better, and I hope that Egosoft takes the time to fix the bugs, spotty mechanics, and add more stuff to it, because right now it just doesn't feel like a fully solid game. And as a result, it gets a 4 out of 10. It's very, very close to being a fun and interesting game. And I still had a lot of fun with the game, but I just can't recommend it in its current state unless you go in knowing that there's a lot of bugs and problems and spotty mechanics. And if you're used to that from previous X games launching, then sure, pick this game up because you'll probably enjoy it as it's the same kind of thing, but know that it's very much a work in progress game.